Welcome back to the Blue Door Pub Thunderdome for another Bull and Andy Carlson, Minnesota's 87th best daily podcast, a show about everything and nothing, coming right at your ass 5 days a week. Sitting shotgun is going to be Matt Waldman of the Rookie Scouting Portfolio. Now, if you're into the draft Twitter, you obviously know Matt Waldman. He is the godfather. He is the numero uno. He is the wise sage in the forest of jabronis. I can't think of an analogy. Yeah. We'll have Matt on here in a sec because it is draft day. Happy Thursday, one and all. It's finally here. It is Christmas to the NFL community as all of your teams get to go in, get their savior, get the missing piece, as it were, for a championship run. Or the Jets. Or it can be the Jets and they'll be terrible. Or it can be the Vikings and not have a first-round pick at all. So, and it is hope springs eternal. It is amazing how the NFL has turned a couple people reading names into a 3-day television event. You know, two of the night's prime time, Saturday during the afternoon. It's pretty amazing. But I'm excited. I know that some Vikings fans are rather bummed because the Vikings don't have a first-round pick. I think that's pretty immaterial. I'm fine with it either way. And, you know, this would be the draft to have the bulk of your picks in the mid-rounds, the second, 2/3, and 2/4 as well. And, you know, we've seen how things have shaken out in the past. Maybe Rick trades up depending on how the board plays out. Maybe he trades down, tries to recoup that fourth-round pick in 2018 that was given up in the Sam Bradford trade. I don't know. There's a lot of things that can go down in this draft, and either way, let's just go. Let's just get this thing over with. So listen in. We have a short little interview with Matt Waldman here, and then enjoy the draft. And also something you should enjoy in the Twin Cities area. If you're buying or selling your home, Josh Pelto, RE/MAX Preferred. You know the deal. He'll get you the best price. It's the seller's market right now, so if you're selling, he'll get you top dollar. And if you're buying, he will fight like hell and get you the best price possible. Specializes in first-time home buyers, or if you're moving on up, like me and the missus and little Muggsy and possibly Gerald number 2, we'll be here pretty soon. Josh Pelto, RE/MAX Preferred. I trust him. I love him. Do it up. Give him a call, 763-213-4617, 763-213-4617. Josh Pelto, RE/MAX Preferred, joshpelto.com. All right, let's get to Matt Waldman. And welcome back into the Blue Door Pub Thunderdome is Matt Waldman. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Waldman. You already do, though, so I don't even know why I'm putting that out there. The Rookie Scouting Portfolio. Matt, good to talk to you again, brother.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be on again.
It's funny. I was looking back at our former email correspondence to get your phone number, and you called me Randy. And then I'm like, oh, I'll let that one slide.
Good, because I was probably extremely fatigued at that point, so That's probably what happened there. So I would not probably do well in my suggested revised Wonderlic test, which is basic.
How big is the Wonderlic test?
How big is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's just a small layer, really. Mm-hmm. When you take a look at everything, there's a lot more research that's being done in terms of different types of interviews to gauge, on-field intelligence and personality and leadership styles. And I think this is just one layer. There are some teams that probably give it a lot more than they should, and they're probably the ones that aren't doing all that well.
Yeah, it's funny. It's always the teams that are towards the bottom of the barrel thinking that they're trying to be the smartest team in the room of like, are you a cat person? And if so, are you a calico or a Siamese cat person?
Yeah, and I think that it's just one of those things that, again, it's just like any other business environment where you have people who are very smart throughout all levels of an organization, but there may be one area where that key personnel is lacking, and that can break the entire chain of what you're trying to do. Whether everyone gets great information and you have that one person who's supposed to process it all and make a decision, and they don't know how to use that information or just reject it out of sorts. But my joke has been, if you really want to see what a quarterback can do, instead of asking them to do the Wonderlic, maybe you lead him into a room on the ruse of a meeting, have two offensive linemen put a bag over his head and beat on him for about 45 minutes, and then ask him to take the Wonderlic. And, he answers one question right, he's draftable. If he avoids the confrontation or at least holds it off a little bit, he's a first-round pick. And if he knows it's coming before he even enters the door and says, no, I'm not going in that room, then he should be your top 10 overall pick.
Oh, so Vince Young, is somehow going to take two beatings in that scenario.
maybe I don't know. So it's one of those deals that maybe we should have administered that to Bud Adams.
Oh, yeah. R.I.P. Bud Adams. So it's draft week, and for most of us, it's like the draft's finally here, and we're getting excited about it. Like the mainstream media is catching up, and now they're just starting to grind on some of these prospects. But a guy like yourself who's in it 365, what is this week leading up to the draft? What does it feel like? Is it cathartic? Is it excitement? What is it?
It's funny to say. I mean, I'm excited to see how it's all going to go. But to me, this sounds odd, and it's probably not great from a media standpoint to say this. But I'll be honest about it. I mean, I watched these guys for so long that it's like it's going to be fun to talk about on a show during the draft and do that kind of thing. But if you just told me what happened and said it happened in 5 minutes and here's all the results, I'd be happy with that, because to me, the fun part's watching the tape and then being able to construct it all. So, what goes on this week in terms of all the rumors and all that stuff, to me, I just ignore that stuff.
Yeah. I actually kind of wish they would do it like baseball and just do it on a random Tuesday afternoon and just get the whole thing done with.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I mean, it's great for the NFL and how they want to do it, and they've certainly turned it into an event. And kudos to them that they've been successful in making something that seems as dry as this into a must-see TV thing for a lot of sports fans. The fact that they were able to pull that off does require a great bit of skill in the marketing arena and all that.
Yeah, they turn being 250 names into two primetime TV events and then a big old Saturday event when the weather's nice. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm still amazed by it, to be quite honest with you.
Speaking of amazed, maybe this class isn't the most amazing class ever, but how do you project it versus recent classes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually the most intriguing class that I've seen in the past 10 to 15 years. Ooh. And the reason that is that when you look at it, offensive line is a big part of a class at the top getting a high grade, and there's not a lot of great offensive line prospects, if any. So there's a reason why people are knocking this draft class, because really you're looking at edge rushers, offensive linemen as guys who go early, and you've got a rich edge rushing class. You've got a rich defensive back class. You have a rich running back and tight end class, and then but then wide receiver is considered weak at the top, but maybe very deep. So there are a lot of players but first round picks are always guys who are supposed to be really safe. And there's not a lot of safe picks from the way that, cover your asset GM thinking really goes, because of injury or off-field issues or small school players, or 1 year of really great production. And when you have those types of issues that don't hit those resume bullet points and say, I can cover my assets in front of my owner or in front of the public about why I picked this player, it's a scarier draft for these guys. So there's a lot of panning of it, but there's going to be a lot of good players that come out of this group.
It does seem like Myles Garrett is the clear-cut consensus number one, except it's still, even to me, just who's like a lay draft person, it's like, it's not really sexy. It's not splashy to me.
Yeah, and it's funny because it makes me laugh that we're saying that, but at the same time, and we're panning offensive linemen, because there's nothing to me sexy about offensive linemen. I mean, not remotely when it comes to, they're great players and they're unbelievably important. But to me, because wide receiver is a flashy position that's not there. You look at a guy like Garrett, and I guess that, we've seen him for a couple of years, and he was hurt a little bit this year. So the production may not have been as strong, but from a deeper look, this guy is an excellent pick, and it's a guy that's going to make a lot of sexy plays on the field once he's fully healthy. So, I mean, I like him as a first-round pick. I hope that the Cleveland Browns actually take him. That would be the smartest move, I think, if they were to go that direction.
Yeah, having the first and the 12th overall pick, and also 33 coming in on the back end there, how could the Browns conceivably screw this up?
They could probably pick a quarterback early when they could let one fall to them.
Mm-hmm.
That would probably be just as good, if not better. For instance, I think a guy like Mitch Trubisky, who's a hometown guy in Mentor, Ohio. I have family in Mentor, and I'm sure that a lot of Cleveland. There may be the Browns overthinking this and thinking we need to get fans in the seats and we want to bring a hometown guy in here. But Mitch Trubisky is a guy that could be a good quarterback and should develop into one. But adding that pressure of you may need to start right away, and there are guys who I think could be transcendent, and that you could pick later. I think Pat Mahomes is a guy that if you gave him time, he could be a transcendent player. But it's a higher risk thing, and Trubisky with that hometown element could be a problem. So, maybe trading, picking him in the top 10 while either trading out the first round pick or picking him first overall, when you could have gotten a guy like Garrett, and then you could have waited and either gone Mahomes or traded down and still gotten Mahomes. It might be one of those things where they could screw that up.
Yeah, I feel like the hometown kid aspect would be overstated. Just get someone good or at least entertaining. And Mahomes, he might not be good for a year or two, but people can show up before the game and watch him try to hit the third deck, a la Brett Favre and Jerry Glanville back in the day.
Right. And so that's the thing. I mean, but when you look at a guy like Mahomes, I think there's so much misunderstood about quarterback play, both in the NFL and in our community. It's a very difficult position to evaluate, and we all have our misses with it for sure. But, they evaluate quarterback on the basis of academic theoretical play, which is, reading the defense, good technique, anything that's step by step. So again, the cover your asset approach of management can explain away mistakes because they look at least halfway intelligent to explain why the mistake occurred and why it can be fixed and how they can address it. But when you have a player who's maybe more on the axis of intuitive, creative, which is one of three axes that I really think are important to quarterback play. And you have to have a blend of all three, which is the academic, the intuitive, and then the emotional intelligence component of leadership and toughness. And all three, great quarterbacks have all three of a certain blend, and they have enough of all three to be strong. But guys who get drafted tend to be drafted on the basis of the academic, technical merit, theoretical thing, because analysts also harp on that a lot. And as a result of that, you get guys like Alex Smith who, the right answer for every theoretical equation of, reading a defense is a check down. And so, but Aaron Rodgers is a guy who, when he may skip that answer and go straight to touchdown, on a deeper play or a play that doesn't go exactly as scripted because of what he saw and read. Tom Brady does the same thing, even though he's much more path of least resistance guy. Mahomes is that creative guy. So as a result in that, when he screws up, guys who are creative and intuitive or lean more in that direction, when they screw up, their mistakes look dumb because they skip multiple steps and you can't explain them away as much. And it makes those cover your asset GMs look dumb, and they don't like looking dumb.
Yeah, it's like you take the cerebralness of the best quarterbacks in the past decade. There's probably Greg McElroy being near the top, except he's calling SEC games. And when Brett Favre got to Green Bay, he didn't even know what a nickel defense was. But so that's really adding into the inexact science part.
Yeah, Dan Marino didn't read defenses extremely well either. So it really is, it's a craft, and it does contain all those things. You think about leadership, and some of the best leaders that you've had, whether you've worked for when you work for people in an organizational environment, whatever it is, sometimes they may not be the most book smart, knowledgeable guys, but they are very effective as leaders because they're intuitive about how to deal with people. They're intuitive about decisions that they're supposed to make. They use the knowledge that other people have around them to the hilt. And you can have guys who are extremely book smart, who are extremely theoretically smart, who, when it comes down to actually making decisions under pressure, they're not very good at it. And, it's those 3 to 4 plays a game that really make the difference with quarterback play. And, a guy who's hesitant or plays like an economist trying to, they have to wait for 3 or 4 years to tell you that a recession occurred. Recession occurred 3 to 4 years from now, because that's the academic nature of things. Well, that doesn't work in an immediate performance environment. And sometimes we can get too academic with how we analyze these guys and how we lean on them and expect them to do things.
Ooh, McElroy's Ben Bernanke.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Boom.
I love it.
All right, Matt, 2 items, and then I want to steer it towards a little Vikings action. First off is, so the quarterback rankings, the top 4, the Trubiskys, Watson, Kaiser, Mahomes. How do you see them?
Yeah, I have Mahomes clear in a way because I'm much more of a believer that it's harder to teach the intuitive than the academic. And I think that when you look at his footwork, he's more sound than you give him credit for. And I think he's better at throwing the ball away and managing the game than people give him credit for. He'll learn the things he needs to learn as long as the team isn't too impatient with him, which they tend to be with all quarterbacks. I think Kaiser is the safest guy, but that means that he can be a little Ben Bernanke in his approach about being hesitant about when to let go of the ball, even though he may recognize it early enough. He doesn't release it early enough because he waits for confirmation too long, and that can lead to some mistakes and inaccuracies. I like Watson and Bortles about the same. I think they're both, Watson and Trubisky about the same. I think they're
Freudian slip there.
That is, and I was about to get to that, is that I think they both compare very much to Blake Bortles in terms of athletic ability, and how they play the game in terms of what they're capable of doing. And when Bortles works hard at the game, like 2 years ago and during the summer, he was very good. When he stopped working hard, he was very bad. And, they're going to have to get better at reading defenses so that they can maximize both their academic and athletic gifts. So that's the way I kind of look at that class. And really the most talented guy I would say on the board, if you didn't include injury or off field, would be Chad Kelly. And I think he might be the most talented quarterback in the past 3 years.
Yeah. That's what I want the Vikings to do. Just 7th round. Like, I know we always take a slow plodding linebacker in the 7th round, but just swag Kelly 7th round. Let's make this happen.
Yeah, if he screws up, whatever, if he can't hold it together and turn the other cheek when he goes outside, and prevent himself from shooting off his mouth and saying stuff, then you wasted a 7th round pick or a UDFA signing. And if not, you might end up having your best quarterback since Brett Favre joined the team.
Well, yeah, and the Vikings wasted a 6th round pick on a German YouTube star last year that's never going to see the field. So, why not?
Yeah, yep, I hear you.
Yeah. Sliding into the Vikings, and this is going to be applicable. I hope that's not. A lot of people are starting to make the case for Joe Mixon here in purple if he's there at 48. I don't think he survives till 48. What are your thoughts?
I think that's pick 48. I think he might, but I could see why he won't. I think half the teams probably have taken him off their board, and the other half have probably looked at this. And you got to understand that, the way I consider this is this from a off-field standpoint. What he did, you can be. Everyone has every right to be very angry about that and be appalled by what he did. But you also have to understand that it's not the NFL's job to enforce the law. It is our civic society's duty to do that. And if you're angry about that, then maybe you should get more involved in that side of the world, because you have every right to be able to do so. And I applaud you if you decide to go do that, so that maybe the NFL has no opportunity to even be faced with the decision to do that, because there are plenty of guys that at work who even run HR departments who are probably convicted of drunk driving or beating their spouse or their children or something of that nature, and they still have jobs. So, when I look at it from an on-field standpoint, as a talented guy, they probably examined him on a level of, looking at, whatever reports that are available, interviewing him, and if they feel good about him, then they feel like that the risk is low for him to have a repeat issue. And that means that they feel like that he's going to grow up and learn from this lesson. And for them, then you have a player who compares very favorably to Matt Forte in terms of the all-around skill sets, the athletic ability, the size, the strength, and he catches the ball very well. He's a complete back.
If he didn't have the off-the-field baggage, where would he be in terms of the running back rankings?
Since I'm agnostic about off-the-field baggage, when I give rankings pre-snap or he is my number 3 guy on my board right now. At running back.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have hinted like, well, if he was clean off the field, he'd be RB1. But I think that's more like forbidden fruit, or it's like, oh, yeah, I'm just covering my bases here if he turns out to be really good.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I mean, that's why I do a pre-draft and post-draft publication, because the pre-draft is for me to look strictly at talent,
Mm.
and I don't really, I mean, again, I'm not trying to mimic the draft room because I'm not in there. I
Yeah.
don't see what's going on. I talk to people who are in those rooms and who supply information and do those types of things, and they tell me what goes on. But why am I trying to pretend to be something I'm not? What I am is a guy who evaluates tape and evaluates talent, and talent. Those things have nothing to do with talent. They have to do with professionalism, and the ability to mature and grow. And, those are things that I don't have the opportunity to do. And I don't trust people enough who are all, I don't have enough contacts or enough contacts I would trust to tell me what they think about those types of things, especially when I'm told that a lot of scouts are given free reign to psychoanalyze these players, and they really shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that the best teams structure it is that they have, people with a psychology background and a law enforcement background who actually do these interviews, process this information, and then feed it to an upper tier guy rather than the bad teams that say, we're going to let you editorialize on these types of things when your real job is just watching tape.
The Vikings are in need of a number of skill positions, and you're just the right man to talk to here. So, kicking off the running back, outside of Mixon, give me a running back in the draft that fits well with what the Vikings want to do.
I mean, what you want from this team is probably a guy who's going to be able to run from shotgun, but can also block well, and also create yards on his own, because this team is going to need to develop a little bit more, from up front. So some guys that can do that from a variety of ranges. Later on in the draft, you might be able to get a guy like Jamal Williams. He's a good all-around back. Reminds me a lot of Ricky Waters. He's patient. He can run his schemes. He's very good out of the pass, as a pass receiver, but he's probably one of the best blockers in this draft class. He's not unbelievably fast, but he's quick. He understands how to play physically. He's got good stamina. I like Samaje Perine a lot. I think you can also get him a little bit later. And he's a guy that, because of his size, and the Vikings seem to like, the Matt Asiata kind of player, you're getting a guy who might be the strongest player in this draft class in terms of a running back position, maybe even at any position. But he's a guy that, you look at Fournette going downhill, he needs a little bit of a runway to really get that strength.
Mm-hmm.
Working to his advantage. Samaje Perine is a guy that can be at a standstill and a guy can hit him, and it's kind of like watching, butter hit a hot cast iron frying pan and just melt on contact.
I love that.
And that's what happens with Perine.
Mm-hmm.
And he can catch, he can block. So that's another guy that I think, as the offensive line gets better, he gets better. But he could also be a guy that can help you out a lot in that range. And those are two guys that you wouldn't have to take necessarily in the first round to get.
I love those two names. That's right up my alley. Splitting out wide, the Vikings lost Cordero Patterson and also something called Charles Johnson, and who knows if Treadwell is going to really pan out. Give me a couple like mid-round wideout guys that you got your eye on.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly some guys that I like in this class. I mean, Chris Godwin is a nice guy, kind of a Greg Jennings in his prime type of player, and I know the Vikings didn't really get that from him. But
no, we didn't. We paid for it, though.
But they saw him when he was in his prime, and they didn't like what they had to see. So they understand. I would say guys like Cooper Kupp are interesting, but they probably going to look for more of a speed element, even though he's really great in the first 10 to 15 yards. Amar Darboh is a guy that makes some tougher catches. He's really grown on me, and I think that he could be a 10-year player. But, if you're going for more upside, I would love to have our Darius Stewart. I think our Darius Stewart is a physical player with a very strong outlook to his game. I mean, he's a guy that he can block for you. He can break tackles. He can bounce off hits from like linebackers, but he also can go deep and win the ball in the air. He's just going to have to learn more as a route runner. But I think this is a guy that gives you that Golden Tate type of skill, but with better hands. And that's a pretty nice thing to have.
And last but not least, we talked about my dream of Swag Kelly in the 7th round, but another late round or UDFA quarterback that people should keep their eyes on.
Probably Josh Evans, because I think that Josh Evans is a guy that he He is very accurate downfield. He makes some of those big boy throws you're looking for in tight coverage. I think he's good in the pocket in terms of being able to maneuver. He only played 1 year at Virginia Tech. He was an Air Force recruit, tore his ACL, and then he played in junior college for a year. I think if he had a couple of years, he would probably have been one of the top picks next year. He played very well. He was very close to knocking off Clemson in a comeback victory, and he knocked off Notre Dame coming down from behind. He's a player. And then I'd add Josh Reynolds as a wide receiver, as another mid-round guy that would be my top choice for the Vikings. Man, he can run routes. He's kind of a mix of Marvin Jones and A.J. Green and Chris Henry, all former Bengals, but tall, thin, strong and wiry, very flexible, can win downfield, but also can run those disciplined routes and get better at it. And he would probably be my top choice.
And you heard from the man himself. Matt, give the people the quick elevator speech on the Rookie Scout portfolio.
Sure. What you get is 2 publications for $21.95. 10% goes to Darkness to Light, which is an organization that helps prevent sexual abuse and help train people to cope with that when kids are victimized and help them cope with it. It is a publication that it's a 395-page draft guide, pre-draft on the skill positions, and then the post-draft is one that reshuffles my board so that it's a thing for fantasy users that they can use for re-ranking and depth chart analysis and fit. And I show all my work. So you basically see a process that NFL scouts have bought that they particularly like, that have gotten back to me. And, fantasy owners and media read it a lot. I've been doing it for 12 years. You can find it at www.mattwaldmanrsp.com. You can take a video tour of it.
And we'll have all the links in the show notes page. And Matt, I got to say, I don't buy many publications, but this one always helps me in fantasy get to second place in my league. So it's like, you Minnesota Viking me. You get me so close, but then crush me.
Well, hey, listen, I appreciate the fact that you like it enough to buy it, and hopefully we can get you over the top.
He's Matt Waldman. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Waldman, Rookie Scouting Portfolio. Thanks a lot, man.
Hey, thank you.
And you could tell that I could have talked to Matt for hours, just about all this draft stuff, and I'm always more of a fan of the draft. I'll never have the inkling or the time or the dedication to put in to be a true draft expert because there's just too many prospects and there's only so many hours in the day. And I love talking to guys like Waldman, like Arif, like Luke, and so forth, that this is their thing. This is what they're all in on. Oh, Jay Reed Draft Scout too. And it's just cool. It's cool, like it's speaking a language of, he's a waist bender, or he's a late breaker, or he's got fluid hips, and stuff like that. It is, I got to get my ass down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl, because Luke's been there a couple times. Arif went with Luke last year, and just so many cool stories of meeting these awesome people from Twitter, and just the little draft community. And it's a really odd niche, if you think about it. It's like we specialize in these college players that are going to get picked by the pro teams, and then how they fit in with the pro teams. It's wild. It is wild stuff. And hey, if you're going to go out and get some wild ass celebrations at the draft party, even though the Vikings don't have a first round pick, or throughout the weekend, get around town with Lyft, bullshow.co/Lyft, LYFT. And if you're partying, you don't want to drive. That's dumb. You don't want to pay for parking. That's almost even more dumb. Not as dumb as a DUI, but still pretty dumb. And yeah, we're giving you $15 off your first couple of rides just by downloading the app through us. Bullshow.co/Lyft, LYFT. Download that app today. All right, we are out of here. Enjoy the draft, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Shows available on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. You already know. Follow me. The new social media plug. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all at Andy Carlson Show. So at Andy Carlson Show, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, hit it up. Thanks, producer Allie, for making me not sound so stupid today. But for Matt Waldman of the Rookie Scouting Portfolio, I'm Andy Carlson saying, Annyeong, sayonara, and bye-bye. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Bull with Andy Carlson, Minnesota's 87th best daily podcast. Download the show on iTunes. Everyone's middle name is Jerome.
I got a fever, and the only prescription is more Purple for the Win podcast with Andy Carlson. Come to you all off season long, covering free agency, the draft, OTAs, and then we're on to training camp. Get the show on 1500 ESPN, Podcast One, and the Podcast One app.